It was not a structured process. It was more a process of trying to figure things out. That's how you begin. I mean, it was clear from the get-go that the actors were going to be floating in zero G. We tried to honor zero G and zero resistance, meaning also the characters would be not only floating, but they would be just spinning and stuff. And the other thing that, just to complicate matters, is that we wanted long fluid shots. So once that you start trying to figure out how to do that. And yes, then we start developing technologies, not knowing if they were going to work or not. But everything was keeping in mind that there's going to be an actor who had to perform the whole thing. And I have to say, even how painful and gruesome everything was for the actors, there was a big concern because the team who was doing that basically was Chivo, Emmanuel Lubezki, Tim Weber, the visual effects supervisor, with his group at Framestore, and and me, that were doing that stuff together. And I'd say Chivo and Tim were really, really concerned about how to try to make everything as easy as possible for Sandra, or at least as clear as possible of what is going on. And so, I mean, I probably was not as clear or as comfortable.
No, you weren't clear.
Can you tell a bit about how painful and gruesome it was? Since you said it was.
Well, I mean, gruesome. I mean, it's all of a sudden bodily fluids sort of come to mind. So there's never bodily. There was some blood. There's some blood and blisters, but it just depended on which. It was contraptions that literally took at least 20 minutes to get into, that harnessed you and locked you into something that you had no control over once it started. And you're always strapped down at there's always something, so no matter what you were trying to do physically to do the 30% motion, trying to talk the normal way and trying to get your hand here, well, I knew this hand had to wind up right there or the whole thing wouldn't cut, or you'd have Tim going, Cindy? And I'm like, fuck. You see, your hand needs to be right here. You see that, and you're just like, and there's like a blister coming, something's cutting into your leg, or you're hanging from the wires and he's coming down below saying, can you see this? I'm like, I can see it.
And the gruesomeness, I have to say, is just in the terms of the process, because everything was pre-programmed. So that means that once we set up to shoot, the timings were already written in stone. Not only the timings, but the positions and the marks and all of that. So we have to work first with Sandy, making sure that with the animations that we were more or less in sync with the whole thing.
So basically they would show you a little video of like an anime version that was like, okay, she's doing this, and she's grabbing onto here, and then her legs swing up, and you have to turn, you have to grab here. That's about 8 seconds, and that's all you get. You can't look left and right. You had a little bit of leeway in the helmet, but your body had to match exactly what they were doing. So you were doing this, the puppeteers were maybe swinging your legs up, and then you could have all the emotion you wanted, if you could find it, come out of your face. And so while my body's doing it, trying to mathematically give him what he wanted, you're going, please let that become second nature so I can then have anything organic happening, and it was that. It was like match this physically and timing wise, but then let everything here be completely new and organic.
Yeah, and the thing is that in order to do that, Sandra was involved in the timings of all these animations. Or in sometimes animations, we would present something that says, yes, but I don't feel that she would be doing that. I think she would be doing such and such. So we'll have to go back. In a normal movie or in a normal set, you just restage in 5 minutes. Here would be like 2 months.
2 months.
Of going back and restage the whole thing. But once that it was there, Sandra knew exactly what she needed for each shot in terms of her workout, in terms of her body, and also the choreography in terms of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever cues she had to hit. And she was working then with the puppeteers, that the guys who did Warhorse on stage, they were helping Sandra with limbs.
They were like puppets. They were like behind a screen. And I'd have the wire system. They knew if I reached here in gravity, your body would sort of keep going that way. Whereas now you go like this, your body goes backwards. you do this, it goes forward. So they knew that no matter which way I turned, they would move your body, so I would have something to work with. It's just it's a hard way to describe it, other than we just need to make another movie on how we made the movie and go, this is what I meant.
Can I ask both of you what relative to what you do? Okay, you're facing enormous technical challenges. Huge. That's what you're describing. As a performer, as a director, why bother?
Man, I have to say, every single day I ask that question. Every single day, But truth of the matter is that after all this, for me it was easy. I was walking around, said, Sandy, can you do it slower? But truth of the matter is that Sandra trained so much and rehearsed so much that when we were shooting, we rarely discuss about the technical aspect. I mean, sometimes Tim would say, can you just reach a little higher when you're supposed to hit the bottom? But most of the time we were just talking about performance and performance and emotion. I think that was the constant concern, the constant preoccupation.
But there was something about the project, obviously, that what the end result of this made everything you were going through worth it.
Because the film is about adversities, and we were going through, you can say adversities, because everything was a big challenge.
Yes.
And but also that was the spirit of the film, and is when Sandra and I we met for the first time. We talk about that in life, that our connection, even before talking creatively, was in life. A big understanding about big things in life. So it was as if that was part of life process. At least it was for me. For Sandra was.
When you find sort of a kindred spirit where you go, we might be able to share your life or where you are now. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to connect and work together. And it's such an strangely intimate profession. And I had such star envy of this one, and I was like, wow, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it work. What do I have to offer? I don't know. But he knew in his head what he wanted to say. I knew that we agreed on major life points and what we wanted to say in this. But I was Houston in the blind. I was like, Alfonso in the blind again. I just want you to remind me of what you saw here, or what I'm looking at, or what's happening here. But when you feel that kind of support and camaraderie, which you really. You feel it to some degree, but I've never felt it on that level, because it was blind. Studio was going in it blindly. He had nothing to show them. It's going to look like this, but better. Okay. What can you show us? Nothing.
And it's not that we didn't want to show. It's that there was nothing to show.
Yeah.
And that went for a long, long time. And they were super patient, I have to say. They stayed behind the project.
There's a lot of faith on everybody's part in this program.
Yeah. You don't get that a lot. Of course, it's an industry, it's a business. It's someone going, I'm going to give you how much money for something you can't show me or tell me about. It's like, yeah.
Other than the technical aspects of this, what were your concerns about the performance? Because a lot of time you're behind a visor. We don't see your face clearly. We see eyes, we see a glimpse of things, we see a reflection of your face, but it's not a traditional performance where you're dressed normally and we can see your body more, and we can see. So tell me if you had concerns about being able to convey the emotions that you needed to, essentially being covered up for half the movie.
Never thought of that. Well, I think every actor will tell you they're always panicked about being able to convey something with the least amount of crutches, and if all you have are your eyes or your face, just feel it truthfully. I kept going, Alfonso, I go, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel truthful. I would stop everything, you'd see all the technicians going, oh God.
It was perfect. She hit the mark.
He hit the mark. It was like, but it's that, I didn't think, I'm behind a visor. To me, it was still my whole body feeling it and being there. Right. But a lot of times you think you're emoting something and they go, no, we didn't see anything. I'm like, but it was there. I just had to trust in what he saw, because I saw nothing. I heard nothing. I saw these lights. There was blackness everywhere. I had him in my head, and I just had to trust that his vision, if he didn't get what he needed that day, he would say something. Right. And then I would you dig deep, or you know, it's a weird profession. You have to unscrew your head of what you're feeling and screw on this other head of what this other person is going through. And you go, wow, that's not a pretty place to live all day.
But in this thing of the performance, if you see, I mean, people notice because maybe it's more spectacular, all of this stuff, of all the shots and when she's floating around. But and I'm glad people hasn't noticed that probably the longest shot of the whole film is a shot in which is just pure performance, a tour de force performance of Sandra inside the capsule that begins from the moment in which she loses faith. She talks to the Inuit in the other side of the line.
Yeah.
George enters the whole thing, and then she wakes up from the dream, and she starts to put her shit together and said, okay, now I'm getting out of here. And that is not only a tour de force of emotional performance, but she was doing that while performing, because there's no trickery around, performing zero G just with her body, you know. And I have to say that for me that's probably one of the most achieved moments.
Really?
And it's just pure performance.
Did you say that was one take? One shot, I mean?
It's just one shot.
Fooled me. Oh.
How far into the shoot was it? I mean, how much time have you had to get the feel for it?
We didn't have, that's the other thing, we didn't have much time.
No.
The shoot itself was not so long.
Yeah.
And we were like pressure. I remember that point. It was when the studio desperately
I
wanted
remember
to
they
wrap.
were there, right? They were there. We're like, they're here. You can smell them. You sense a suit, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But it was, again, it required a village. Technically, timing-wise, to move a piece out, to have George do something, to have me do something, that if my foot was in the way, then the thing couldn't slide back in. And
Oh
you
yeah,
couldn't-
because there was a lot of sliding of
the piece out,
of the
you know, like all of a
pieces of the
sudden,
set,
and you had to be like asleep, but you're slowly
and
lifting
George
your
coming
leg while
in
not
and
saying
the
anything,
whole
putting your
thing.
leg back down, and then like things that were happening below the waist and above your head were bizarre. You just had
the
to
capsule
zone it up.
rotating to change the position so the actors could be, you know, like that.
Sandra, is talking to yourself a whole different animal for you as an actor?
Sadly, I'd learned that I talk to myself all the time. Not something I'm proud of, but I'll literally sort of narrate, like, why are you doing this? And why don't you just do this? And why don't we just go do this? And do we have this? We've got this. It's like I have a partner just to, you know, when someone starts talking back, we know we have problems. But right now, it's just, I do that just to sort of go through my mental list, because I'm very list and detail oriented. But I mean, it was, again, that talking to yourself is bizarre because it can be incredibly melodramatic. You go, oh, here she goes. She's going to be talking to, you know, George, and he's not there. And it's, oh, we know what scene this is going to be. And we struggled with that. We struggled with that for a long time because we could not figure out. I mean, I'm not a writer. It's not my job to figure out. But it just, like, nothing felt.
And yeah, we tried versions and drafts. And if you realize, I mean, we wanted to find ways of her talking to herself. Basically, they are monologues, but without making it kind of self-conscious talking to herself. And then so one was the conversation on the radio with the other guy who speaks a completely different language. Then the other stuff is her dream, that at the end is our character talking to herself. You know, it's because if you think about that, George was never there. Everything is just projection of her psyche. But then we have her alone again. And is this moment in which we need that everything had to cement, you know, the moment in which she says, okay, now I'm going to leave, I'm going to move forward. And that's the scene that Sandy's saying that we were struggling, because every rewrite that I tried with Jonas, it sucked. I mean, I can say.
It didn't suck. It just, I was like, I don't know how to play that. I don't know
And she
how
was
to-
right, because she was this talking to herself in a very, it felt forced. You always felt that the thing was forced.
While you were filming, this was going on?
This was going on. And one who was, because we were rehearsing and stuff, or talking all the time, and there was George around, and he was just in the distance listening to these things. And then one night I received this email from George. It says, hey, I gave a shot to that scene you guys were discussing. It's not my business, so throw it to the trash, or use it, or use little pieces. I said it to Sandy, and said, wow, this guy nailed it. So
That's the gift of knowing someone for so long. It's like, you get a little right. He gives you little, you know, gold tidbits like that. So, that's sweet.